Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Big Ideas in Education. It's great to have you here. I am Dr. Sarah Boulos-Fye from Somerset Academy Schools, joined, of course, by my co-host, Ryan Kairalla of Doral College. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Sarah. Great to be chatting with you.
Great to be chatting with you, too. I heard you wanted to present me with a real hardball story, something I couldn't relate to at all. So let's see what that is.
I know you I know you hate it when I bring the reading and language arts stories to you, Dr. Fye. So try to bear with this one because I know it's really out of your subject area.
I'll try. Everybody needs to go out of their comfort zone sometimes.
You know, and I know it's another subject that you don't really enjoy that much. College admissions and essays. I know just none of this stuff speaks to you. In all seriousness, though, I think you're going to like this story. We're moving into March, Sarah, which means that most college-bound high school seniors have recently completed one of the more enriching and often challenging assignments in the college admissions process, the admissions essay. Yeah. What makes admissions essays a unique experience for students is that it's personal in nature, which is a writing format that many students don't get a lot of practice in until college application season rolls around. But in a recent article in Edutopia, English teacher Jason Abril wants to change that and give students more opportunities for personal essay writing throughout their K-12 careers. Mr. Abril preaches the value of personal essay writing for students. Quote, "I have had students tell me that their child used to love creative writing, but somewhere along the way, the rigor of school seemed to have killed it. Personal essays, then, restore that creativity, since they encourage a freedom from form. Students can experiment with style and figurative language and syntax in ways that the traditional academic 5-paragraph essay often thwarts." Unquote. Mr. Abril also notes that personal essay writing assignments also present a valuable opportunity for teachers to get to know their students better, giving them insight into their students' concerns, dreams, and emotions, while also affording an opportunity to assess their compositional skills at the same time. But assigning personal essays does more than just improve a student's writing skills. As Mr. Abril notes, personal essays instill within his students, quote, "a love of reflection, looking back on their experience, reminiscing on significant memories that linger, carefully considering the seemingly little moments that, only upon reflection, have an enormous impact on us," unquote. There was a piece from the article, Sarah, that I thought was really, really neat, where Mr. Abril talked about how he wrote so many essays in high school, countless essays, more than he can possibly remember. Except for one essay, the only essay that he remembers from his high school experience was that personal college admissions essay because of the amount of reflection it entailed. And it left a significant experience on his life, and he wants to create that experience for other students. And so I thought that was really interesting and exciting, and obviously would relish the opportunity for students to get as much of those kind of personal writing opportunities as possible in the classroom.
It's interesting you say that. So I feel as though recently there has been so much conversation, at least here in Florida, because we have very different standards. This past couple years, we went into new standards. We went into a new test platform, a new test system. Because of that, there's been a lot of conversation amongst us educators about when and where do we put writing. And a lot of times we're talking about writing in a very academic sense, right? And I've been pushing for a lot of my schools to kind of use writing in a way, maybe in a way that we used to in some situations, but in a way that we've definitely gotten out of the habit of doing, which is using writing constantly. I forget the exact phrase for it, but basically using academic writing all the time, like use opportunities to do writing when maybe you wouldn't have before. And that can include reader response, right? When we're reading something, just give me your initial reaction to what we've read. And that can be a writing activity. In any of your content area classes, be it social studies, science, math, have a written response to it, giving ideas on how to do it, using templates for writing like that. But I don't know how many of them really do give an opportunity for personal writing. I think maybe the closest to that would be free writes or, reader response, and giving students a chance to talk about themselves or about something that they care about is tricky. And I'm challenging myself to think of a time where I've been encouraged recently. I know I can look further back, but recently when I've really been encouraging teachers to give students an opportunity to do something like what you're saying. I think most creative writing classes are in our middle schools. So when a student gets to high school, they may be pressured with those high school content, high school courses, whether it's AP or, dual enrollment, a lot of our students do. Where are they getting opportunities to do this personal writing? And I'm as you were mentioning that, I was thinking to myself, I don't know that we're giving those opportunities as much as maybe we could be.
Yeah, that fits in exactly with what Mr. Brill was saying, that his experiences with a lot of his students, that the older they get, particularly
Right.
as they go from middle to high school, those opportunities for personal reflective writing start to diminish. And one of the biggest issues with that is that it's really missing out on something that's very engaging for students, because Mr. Brill notes in the article that not only is personal writing probably subjectively the most fun type of writing to write. We all like to write about ourselves and reflect about our experiences, but it's also the most fun writing to read. Mr. Brill talks about how his students are most engaged when they have them read essays that aren't just written by the greatest writers, the Hemingways and the Faulkners, but when those writers specifically write about themselves. That kind of personal reflective writing is interesting to read from others as well. And so depriving students of those experiences, maybe because we are too attached to teaching that 5-paragraph essay, or we really want to prepare students for the academic writing they're going to confront in college, really, causes us to miss out on what could be a really valuable experience for these kids. And I wonder how that gets addressed. Is that just something that we have to do on the micro level, where we just encourage teachers to create more of these assignments? Or do we need a more macro level approach where we start to say we need standards that specifically provide that we need to start doing this kind of writing more in the classroom so that it's done across the board?
Well, when we talk about vertical alignment, when we talk about vertical planning across grade levels, a lot of what those conversations look like is looking at what academic needs there are present in college and working backwards, right? So if we were to do that and to talk about, well, just to get into college, they need to have experience with this kind of writing, with this kind of not just essay writing, but the ability to reflect and all of that. I think working backwards and saying, well, those skills are things that we probably encourage where, right? And ask ourselves, well, at what grade levels and at what points do we get to touch on those things? And I think what the danger is, and this happens often with a lot of, especially when it comes to expression and creativity, we hear so much about elementary schools and to a very small extent middle schools provide opportunities for that kind of write about whatever you like, right? Come in on Monday and just write about your weekend. Those are prompts that I see often in lower grades, but as we get more and more structured, we get further and further away from some of those soft skills that are really critical to success in career in college.
Gosh, that's a really good point, right? Because encouraging reflective writing isn't just about, hey, this is fun, so kids should do it. There are really important skills that students need out in the world. Being able to express yourself, being able to articulate how you're thinking and feeling effectively. These kind of soft communication skills are critical in the workplace.
Absolutely.
And so certainly our writing assignments need to further encourage these points and make sure students are skilled at it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have an answer for where exactly it needs to happen, but I can tell you I've seen some great examples of that happening. Just recently, I was in middle school last week in a middle school class where the teacher has them keeping gratitude journals. And so every day they write, sometimes they react to like a quote that the teacher has pulled and wants them to reflect on. Other days they can just talk about something that they've done. And then Ryan, I know I've shared with you before about the One Good Thing website where I've seen teachers who have their students do a one good thing journal with the idea that every day may not be good, but there is one good thing you can find in every day. So having those kinds of moments and journals and activities where students can kind of see over time their own reflective process is really powerful.
That is powerful. Let's not lose sight of the time-honored tradition of the journal, right? That's certainly something that we all did in the elementary grades, right? Every elementary student is doing journals, but it's sort of, we don't embrace it as much in the secondary grades, and perhaps
And I don't
we
know
should.
how much it's happening at elementary levels still, if I'm being completely
Is that right?
honest.
Oh, what a
Well,
shame.
like I said, because we've been, I think, reevaluating when and how writing is taking place, I think that might be something that people are not making as much of they're not placing as much emphasis on it. Like you said, like maybe we're not finding place for it in a standard, so then we decide it's not worth our time, and that might be a big mistake.
I'm with you on that. Now, Sarah, you have a story from us that's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's from your neck of the woods. You didn't have to look very far for this story.
No,
Can you
it's
tell us what's
something.
going on here?
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. So something happened at one of our schools in November, and it really hit close to home for me and my colleagues because at one of my own schools, in fact, where I taught for many years, we had this incredible thing happen, and it was really scary. And I think we have a video that's going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'll give a little bit more information.
Happy to be here. Happy to be back. Grateful.
Senior Lorenzo Blackshear was playing basketball last Friday on his school campus when suddenly he collapsed on the court, suffering a sudden cardiac arrest.
I got there, checked for a pulse, no pulse, and just started CPR.
Teacher and firefighter Mr. Vega administered CPR. Lorenzo regained a pulse before paramedics showed up.
As they were taking Lorenzo in the truck, and so she was asking, does he have a pulse? Does he have a pulse? I just kept telling her, Mom, they're working on him, I promise. Because there were times when there was no pulse, and it was in and out. So that was gut-wrenching.
When I got to the hospital and I saw him on the bed and he was just lifeless, laying there, that was very hard for me.
His parents saying it's been the hardest week of their lives as Lorenzo recovers in the hospital.
It's been hell, right? Because I dropped him off to school in the morning, happy, his Lorenzo self. And then to get the call from the school saying that there's something wrong with him, I froze.
I feel like we won the lottery. The stars aligned for us. Everything happened perfectly. There was someone on site. They was prepared. The ambulance got here quick.
In fact, just months prior, the school offered CPR training thanks to Project Adams and the Nicholas Children's Hospital, a program committed to implementing life-saving training at schools.
I think it's the most important thing because the survival rates are way higher when CPR is initiated right away.
That program services and trains at over 200 Miami-Dade schools and now is looking to expand into Broward County. Lorenzo's story at Somerset Academy shows just how important this life-saving training is.
As a principal and someone who's in charge of these children during the day, you feel very responsible to make sure that we do the best we can for these kids. And I'm just delighted that Lorenzo's here today.
Lorenzo still is on that road to a full recovery, but he is expected to walk that stage at graduation in 2024. In Pembroke Pines, Andrea Martinez, Local 10 News.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, this is a very serious situation that came up. And very recently, the Somerset Academy campus that was mentioned in the story, which is in Pembroke Pines, went through a training with Project Adam. And that particular partnership was with Nicholas Children's Hospital, which is a children's hospital in South Florida. But Project Adam is not only in South Florida. It is named after and in memory of a child who unfortunately did lose their life in a situation like this. And the family created this memorial project, and there's partnerships with hospitals throughout the country. So there's a link that I'm actually sharing in the description box that helps us connect with hospitals around the country where educators and anyone really, but I obviously am encouraging educators can get plugged in, can get resources available. While I was going through some training material, I thought it was really interesting. I was trying to get an idea of how available this information is for schools, for teachers, and for students. And I realized again, based on resources that are provided on the Project Adam website, that there are 38 states in the United States that actually have mandated CPR training, not just for educators, but for students. It is actually a legal requirement for graduation to have high school students take CPR classes as well. Florida is not one of those states. So, going to be knocking on some doors for that. This is something really important that we need to have. And it's always interesting when these stories develop that people ask questions about why was this child in this situation? And what happens in a large portion of these situations is that there was not really a medical indicator that this child would have a problem prior to the event, which is terrifying, because these things literally can happen at any time with anyone, and we would not be able to predict it. So the only way we can be prepared is to have that training at our fingertips, quite literally in our hands, to be able to save these children.
So, I mean, not something that I'm going to say very often on this program for anybody who knows me, but I'm just about speechless from that story. I mean, incredible. Obviously, we know all the people in that news report, Sarah. And seeing, the viewing audience, have the pleasure of getting to see Dr. Bernie Montero's eyes, the principal at Somerset, who's obviously a colleague of yours and mine, and seeing, in his face just the concern he has for that student, and what this whole ordeal has meant to him and meant to the entire Somerset family. As that parent noted, they hit the lottery, and thankfully this all worked out. But to your point, it speaks to how something like this can happen to anybody on school campus at any time in any situation. And so it is critical for every school stakeholder, teachers, students, parents, faculty, staff, what have you, to get this training, and because it can make a life or death difference. And thankfully, it worked out in this scenario. And, we obviously know of situations where it doesn't work out because response can't happen in time. And so to see an outcome like this is very heartening, and it speaks to needing more measures like this in the future.
Absolutely. I know that locally we've had legislation surrounding AED and things like that. We have a lot of crisis response, a lot of safety and hardening happening in our schools. But I think that this is something that is so critical, because as we've both mentioned at this point, it is so unpredictable and it is so necessary. And we know that response rates in an emergency are variable. We have no control over some of those things. So what we do have control over is being available, being prepared to see what we can do in an emergency situation. So I'm really excited to share the links in the description box, like I said. And I would really encourage anyone in the listening audience, and I'm challenging myself. I know that I've gone through CPR certification, and I went to look at when my certification expired. It's time, right? I had to take a reflective look, because so many of us as educators, we've gone through training, we've gone through experiences. Things change, recommendations change. So it's not going to hurt to go through something like that again. And also to make sure that we are properly educating anyone that comes into contact with students, to make sure that they are prepared to be a lifesaver if needed, if called upon. Well, I'm so grateful to everyone for listening, and obviously to everyone who is involved in these stories. It's very personal when, like Ryan said, we know everybody involved, and just very grateful that we're able to be a part of a positive news story and something that can spread some inspiration to others. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget, you can always reach out to us using the hashtag BigIdeasInEducation, and we will see you next week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.